and just welcome some of the team from Real-Time Music Solutions. RMS specializes in technology for the performing arts, and at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to our guest speakers. Welcome and thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. I am going to start by doing my screen share action here. I want to make sure I'm getting the address selected. And I'm going to do, if you'll bear with me for a second or two, I'm going to do a quick test to make sure that the AV is coming through okay. So here goes. Okay, everybody can hear that?
Mm-hmm.
For me.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jeff Lazarus. With me today are other members of the Real-Time Music Solutions team. We have David Smith, David Horowitz, and Steve Wood. We're happy to be here to discuss challenges associated with remote rehearsing and are especially excited to spread the word about a solution to these challenges, our new technology, Rehearsal Live Share. Let me start by giving some quick background on who we are. Real-Time Music Solutions provides software services for the live performance community. We've been doing it for over 20 years. Our main focus has been the theater industry. Among our credits are many Broadway national tours, most recently of West Side Story, several years on the London West End production of Les Miserables, world tours of Porgy and Bess, work on a bunch of Cirque du Soleil productions, and tens of thousands of school musicals on 6 continents. When COVID-19 hit, we knew we were in big trouble. Our main markets were live theater and schools, both of which were completely shut down. Our survival depended on a serious pivot. So we considered our strengths and experience, and pretty much on day 1 of lockdown in March, our entire team dropped all other projects and began work on what was a fairly obvious need, a good remote rehearsal technology. The first thing we thought we'd do was hop on the Zoom bandwagon. Zoom was and remains the runaway success when it comes to remote meetings. And they have a pretty good development platform for building third-party apps. We thought we'd create the definitive Zoom rehearsal add-on. But Zoom's business-centric design quickly made it clear it wouldn't work for what we wanted to do. As much as I admire Zoom and use it all the time, including here, obviously, it's built around the concept of one person talking and then the next, and so on in succession. It even has algorithms to filter and block signals it considers to be subordinate sounds. Its model is antithetical to the concept of collaborative music making, where not all the time, but a lot of the time, there are at least 2 sounds happening simultaneously. So we scrapped the Zoom idea and decided to build something from scratch. But we ran into problems right away. And that was due to a long-known technical issue called buffer bloat. When you have a group of people participating in an internet-based video session of any kind, you have to understand each participant will access the internet differently. Each may go through a different service provider, and those providers will use differing equipment and buffering schemes when processing the signal. You may hear a signal a quarter second late, while your colleague hears it a half second after that. Everybody on this webinar right now is hearing my voice at a slightly different time. This variation is acceptable in the context of a business meeting, but not when making music. Now, we're not the first to approach this problem, specifically as it relates to music. We've experimented with a few of the programs that exist. In our judgment, you can have a degree of success with them, but they require a lot of technical fussiness. For example, they require all participants to have a hardwired Ethernet connection, a rarity when most people expect to do things over Wi-Fi. They also demand that people tweak their router settings, which is a daunting task for even the technically savvy. We thought we could do better. So the holy grail, the thing everyone wants, is the ability to perform as if they're in the same room. They want to hear everyone in real time, making those micro adjustments you do on the fly to have an ensemble performance feel. No doubt, that would be incredible. But we came to the conclusion that in any practical sense, that ideal was beyond the current state of technology. At the same time, though, we had an epiphany. We could still create something groundbreaking by letting go of the grail and slightly narrowing scope. After all, rehearsal encompasses a lot more than that performance ideal. In our model, there are two distinct roles, a director and one or more participants. Our technology behaves differently depending on your role. Everybody has a local copy of the underlying music, but as the name suggests, the director is in control. When he or she hits play, music starts on each participant's local machine. Each participant then sings or plays along to that playback and will not hear the other participants, at least not in the first round. More on that later. All participants, however, will hear the director, so feedback and commentary can occur in real time. And here's the beauty part. As each participant sings or plays, those audio signals are all sent to the director and are collated as they travel over the internet. So the director receives a synchronized multi-track ensemble feed. This is the way we resolve the typical latency associated with buffer bloat. It's a unidirectional approach, akin to a vocal teacher instructing a voice lesson pupil, or from the participant perspective, running individual parts in a choral rehearsal or a sectional. We acknowledge it's not the same as hearing everybody as if you're in the same room. Our priority is the highest sound quality delivered simultaneously. We've decided not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and in so doing, we believe we're onto something that's a real leap forward in remote rehearsing. So how far along are we? We now officially support 20-person sessions, one director leading 19 participants. The limit is somewhat arbitrary and is really just based on what we've been able to test ourselves. As we prove higher numbers, we'll raise this limit. RLS is built into two of our existing resources, RMS Coach for use with MIDI accompaniment, and RMS Mix for use with standard audio. We support multi-channel recording of the sessions. The recordings can be used outside of our products, and they pave the way for some powerful new features we're working on. I'm going to show some demos of where we are. I want to note that since you'll be hearing this through Zoom, you won't get the full audio effect. Zoom strips away things like stereo panning and other higher end audio processing, but it will be enough to give you an idea of what's going on. Just know that when working directly with RLS, the sound is even better. Before hitting play on the demo, I want to go over the various views available in Rehearsal Live Share. Here we have a basic gallery view. This is like Zoom and most of the video conferencing platforms out there, a basic grid displaying everyone involved. But now we move into more unique territory, the director view. On the surface, it may look like the speaker view in Zoom, but what's going on is the participants always see the director, while the director, as a default, sees the dominant voice. From there, he or she can arrow navigate to the other voices a necessary concept when more than one person may be singing at the same time. And lastly, we have the mixer view. The name says it all, but we believe it stands alone in the world of video conferencing. Here you can mute, adjust panning, and mix the relative volumes of the voices and underlying accompaniment. And with that, I'll now present our first demo of a multi-participant rehearsal live share session.
Okay, hello. So we're starting our session here, and I guess that means that I need to go to the right location. So it's in Moonshine, and we should be at measure 35. So I'm going back to measure 35, and of course I want to mute all the tracks other than the accompaniment. And is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Looking good. All set.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And here we go.
So that was a run through in real time with 4 singers and a director. It could use some tightening up, but as an early rehearsal, it's probably not dissimilar from what you might experience in the practice room. Now though, let me point out this other feature. It may be hard to see in the presentation, but down here is a record button. This allows you to capture a stereo or multi-channel recording of the session, which can then be shared back to the participants. So when I mentioned earlier, the participants only hear themselves, that's not necessarily always true. After the first go around, they could also hear recordings of their fellow participants, all individually controllable in the mixer view. Furthermore, those recordings would be available for practicing outside the RLS session. I'll demonstrate more of this a little later in the presentation. As I mentioned, while music is playing, participants just hear that music and the director. But in between song runs, everyone on the session can hear and speak to each other. There is a free exchange of commentary, questions, and ideas. Our conversation mode, which toggles on and off automatically depending on whether backing tracks are playing. There's also a chat window to dash off quick written communication. All in all, you can expect a similar experience to a typical rehearsal room with real-time back and forth between director and participants. Here's an example.
Okay, so in terms of phrasing, guys, we're going to do 4 measure phrases. Sometimes some of you are carrying over and others are breaking or breathing. It's okay to just do where the periods are. So we're going to do sing we enchanted, while love doth grant it, breath. Fa la 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 la. Breath, fa la la la. And Chris, I'm changing my mind on measure 6. Don't break there. Make sure that your bass, your octave leap is solid and in time. And if you breathe, it might be a little bit late. Yeah.
Right. So if we're all ready, I'm going to rewind to the top, and here we go.
Sing we and enchant it, while love doth grant it. La 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 la. All things invite us now to delight us. La 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 la. Not long youth lasteth, and old age hasteth. Now is best pleasure to take a pleasure. La 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 la. Hence carry packing, nor mirth be lacking. Let's Let's spare no treasure to live in pleasure. La 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 la.
The videos I've shown so far demonstrate RLS with our RMS Coach technology for MIDI accompaniment. There are advantages to this approach in terms of ease of editing. You can quickly change key and tempo, add cuts, repeats, and more. But you are limited to the type of sound you can achieve on your accompaniment. See, I've lost my mouse action here. There we go. So with the integration of RLS into our RMS mix resource, you trade off some of the editing and tempo flexibility for the use of standard audio files. So you get any sound you want. You can make use of full orchestra backing tracks or dash off a quick draft on an acoustic piano. Since just about everyone has access to a reasonable recording studio with the phone in their pocket, you can create content in no time, not to mention access the wealth of material instantly available online. And furthermore, you're not limited to a simple stereo audio backing track. With RMS Mix, you can load up to 16 tracks for your accompaniment. So let's say you're rehearsing a song with 3-part harmony on top of a lead vocal. You might supplement the main accompaniment with 4 vocal guide tracks. These may then be used by the participants at their discretion, muting parts, pushing the volume down on some, lifting others, in whatever way helps them most. And then, let's get this next bullet up. There we go. And then during the rehearsal run, you can capture the participants' take as a multi-channel recording for lots of interesting uses later on. And I'll show you an example of that now.
And I am rewinding to the beginning. I am now arming the recording, and now I am going to hit play. Here we go.
It's only right that you should play the way you feel it. But listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had.
Now, each participant's audio is stored locally, so we need to gather everything together in one place. We're working on automating this process. And here we've got audio from 4 different takes, and we can choose between them. I'm loading this into Pro Tools, but you could use Logic Pro, GarageBand, your digital audio workstation of choice. I took maybe an hour to work with the takes, splicing bits of them together, mixing, adding effects to create the following.
Here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? Thunder only when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. Say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. You'll know.
So who can use RLS? Well, prior to COVID, the lion's share of our business was working with established musical theater content. We have most of the top licensed musical theater titles in our catalog. Anyone who books RMS Coach or RMS Mix with us for any of these established titles will get automatic access to RLS. I want to stress, though, you are not limited to working with content prepared by us. Through our RMS Creator platform, you can work with anything you want. An original show, a concert, a show we haven't developed ourselves, anything you can make on your own or acquire through third parties. In the case of the dream session I just demonstrated, we found a backing track online, created 4 vocal guide tracks, and used this material to build our custom show. A bit on best practices. There are certainly technical considerations, but nothing that should get anybody too bogged down. It mostly comes down to if you have better equipment and quieter surroundings, you'll end up with a better sound. But not having these things doesn't mean you can't use the resource. It just means the sound will be somewhat compromised. The director will need the best computer since that system does most of the heavy lifting. Participants can get away with lesser machines. There are simple steps to help optimize the experience. Everyone should use headphones. Hardwired mics and headphones are better than wireless. And make sure you have a good Wi-Fi signal if that's how you're accessing the internet. Move closer to the router if you don't. We have a more detailed list of best practices and recommended equipment on our website. More than any specific technical consideration, though, you really just need to think of it as the same preparation you do anyway, but reoriented for the technological circumstances. When rehearsing in the pre-COVID world, suppose you told your group, let's meet in front of a certain building. And then at the appointed time, you said, okay, let's go look around for an empty room to rehearse in. And then when you got there, you dumped a box of scripts and scores on a table and told everyone to find their individual materials. Now, of course, you wouldn't do any of that because it would waste a lot of time. Everything would be planned and organized beforehand. It's the same concept here. With RLS, or really any technological resource, the process will be a lot smoother if all parties make a point of installing the software and downloading the show well in advance of rehearsal, working out any kinks or confusions in a relaxed fashion ahead of time. And we'll help you every step of the way. Anyone who wants to give this a try can download a free trial from our website, www.rms.biz. Right now, RLS doesn't exist as an independent product. It's incorporated into our RMS Coach and RMS Mix resources. So you'll want to download either of those to get started. The licensing model for RMS Creator, the user-created content aspect, is based on a monthly or annual subscription. The current price is $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. This allows you to create content for both RMS Coach and RMS Mix. And of course, this model assumes you will supply your own content, MIDI for RMS Coach, or standalone standard audio for RMS Mix. For those who don't know how to do that, we will help you. We also plan to build a community to connect experienced MIDI and audio developers with users to speed the process along. We're now about 6 months into what by rights should be a multi-year project. We're really proud of what we've accomplished in a short amount of time, but we are still in early stages. Here's what we aim to pull off in the coming weeks and months. At the moment, RLS demands a lot of computer resources, at least for the director role. We will continue to optimize that to make it easier to get ever larger ensembles in on a session. We will integrate RLS into the iOS and Android versions of RMS Mix, probably finishing iOS first sometime in the next few weeks. So you and your students will soon be able to remote rehearse with iPhones and iPads. We will implement a new audience mode, which will function as the name suggests. Since the audience is passive, just watching and listening, we don't need to worry about synchronizing them. So a person or group will be able to join the session as an audience member and get the same synchronized feed as the director. The function can also be used to solo an individual participant. In other words, the director can ask one participant to focus on a phrase while placing all other participants in audience mode so they can hear and learn. We will post new releases regularly throughout the fall and beyond, fixing bugs, improving what we have, and adding new features along the way. Since May, we've released at least one new version per week, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. We have no intention of stopping development, even beyond the pandemic. We see the potential of this technology to provide incredibly powerful and flexible ways of using our approach. We can do anything, but we cannot do everything at once. We have a long list of ideas, but we need to ensure the focus of our development efforts aligns with your needs. We are offering this early access to the technology so we can work with you, hear your concerns, and work to discover what needs to be incorporated to continually refine and improve the way RLS is deployed. And that concludes the presentation. And with that, I'd like to open things up to questions. Let me stop sharing. Turn on my video. And we'd love to hear from you. What questions can we answer? Or what did we go over too quickly? What was confusing?
So I'll just jump in right now and say that I have been answering questions on the fly as they came up. There have been a lot of really good questions. So if you go to the answer, but there are 5 new open questions. So maybe we'll switch now to answering live. And so I think the first question, I held back on this one because I wanted to get it from someone that works with it all the time. The question is about Chromebooks.
Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So we have a Chromebook version of RMS Coach. The RLS feature is not yet incorporated into it. That is something we are going to tackle. It's a daunting task, and it's probably going to be behind some of the other features that we're working on, such as iPhone and Android and some of the other things I mentioned in the presentation, but we will get there. It's not ready now, so certainly don't base a decision to start using it on an expectation of working with Chromebooks.
And I think this is a good question as well. And I'll just point out right now that we're in, and Jeff said this before, but we're in rapid development mode. So there are features, when we talk about things, we'll talk about things that we are doing right now, or things that we can already do, things that we're about to implement, and things that are on our punch list. So one of these, the next questions comes from Ellen, which is, will this work with any meeting platform?
I'm not sure I understand. In other words, using this with, say, Zoom?
I think that, yeah, if Ellen wants to jump in and clarify that, but I think overall that you have to think of this as our own platform, and that it would be separate from Zoom in the same way that you wouldn't use Collaborate and Zoom and Skype, you know, at the same time. However, one of the things that we are looking at is how do you take a performance and feed it into a different platform such as Zoom. Currently, if you have enough power on your computer, you could open a Zoom session. You could then share your audio and your video, and then you could open up an RLS session as a director, and then you could send what is being shared on that screen. However, this is not something that we've tested significantly, and there are often conflicts between who has access to the camera and who doesn't. But clearly, this is an important direction for us to go into. And
we're hoping that the audience mode that I mentioned in the presentation is going to solve a lot of these problems.
Yeah, and just so to clarify, audience mode is as if you are the director, but you're not participating. You're only getting the stream that the director is receiving. And at that point, then the director turns into the conduit for live performance, and then it will just come out to the audience as live performance. Okay, this question I see a lot. Would each choir teacher need a license if they're not using it at the same time, as in a school license?
Okay, so students, participants, don't have to pay anything. They do not need to have a license. They can use the application free. But we do ask that any individual that wants to initiate a session, direct a session, that they take out a license.
Oh, I got to unmute. So in this case, this is a good question. I imagine the audience would need to download the software in order to watch.
Well, not necessarily. Probably the way things are right now, yes. But one of the ways we are considering approaching this particular feature is to work with some of the existing broadcasting platforms, specifically on Amazon Web Services, AWS. They have a lot of interesting products that allow you to basically aggregate a lot of different signals and then broadcast that out in an efficient manner. So it's a yes and no, I guess, in answering your question. Right now, the simplest thing to do is have someone download the application, but in the long run, it might not be the most efficient, and we're weighing the pros and cons of each.
Right. Overall, though, we fully expect that one of the great outputs of this, when we get to it, is that you would be able to create a web link, and then on that web link, you could just broadcast that and people could tune in to the web link, just as like Facebook Live or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this question is the license per user or per site, and I think we've answered that, but it's per user, but it's not per student. So if you have a group of 30 and you have one director, you need one license. The next one, this seems like it could be used for dialogue rehearsals as well. And this is actually a really good question, and it speaks to the heart of our solution and also with questions of latency. Jeff, do you want to take this, or you want me to?
Well, I'm not sure where you're going with this, so you go ahead and take this.
Well, currently right now, if you're in performance mode, so when the music is playing, the participants do not hear each other. And that's because of latency. The fact is that if you've ever tried to sing Happy Birthday on Zoom or anything like that, you'll see that everyone is hearing everybody else from the past. And whereas this is all right in certain types of conversations and things like that, in music, you cannot get away with latencies of 100 milliseconds. Even 50 milliseconds or 30 milliseconds seems very, very long. However, if you're willing to deal with the type of latencies for dialogue rehearsals as you have in Zoom, in other words, you're dealing with latencies within RMS of 150, 200 milliseconds, and dealing with that particular delay, then you could certainly use this for dialogue rehearsal within conversation mode.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, when it comes to dialogue, there you're starting to get into a realm where Zoom can cover you a lot of the time, but where things get problematic is when, speakers need to speak each other, jump on a line, because Zoom's going to cut that out. Our application, RLS, won't. So there's an advantage in that regard. But, I have to admit, when it comes to straight dialogue, Zoom gets you a lot of the way there.
And the next question I can answer, when iOS comes in, can participants use the iPad? Yes. And that's one of the things we're working on right now. So, depending on how complex the underlying complexity is, this could come out. What were you anticipating, Jeff?
Yeah,
without promising anything?
We've already proven it. Without any of the GUI elements in place, we've already been able to do a session with an iPhone. We just have to make it, we have to pretty it up basically and make it a little more intuitive. I don't expect it to be a big challenge. So knock on wood, I'm thinking we can get this done in the next few weeks.
The director will always have to use a computer, though.
Yeah, that is an important point. You won't be able to lead a session from an iPhone or an iPad. It's just for participants.
And in fact, I think it's good to point out that you can't just use a vanilla computer. For example, right now I'm on a MacBook Pro from 2013. It has 2 cores. And for director right now, we are highly recommending 4 cores, and that has worked very well on any 4-core machine that we've worked with as a director. Has been good up to 20 people. A 2-core machine may work for smaller groups, but the more people that you put into it, then the more possibilities you have that you're overloading the power of the machine. We do anticipate that we'll continue to optimize this so that as we move forward, we'll be able to have larger groups of people with the same powered machine. And that will happen as we move along. Okay, so the next question about MTI. So I'm going to throw this right to the other people. I saw a question about MTI. Is this an allowed option for licensing companies?
Well, I mean, we don't control the licensing of the rights. So that you got to work with the licensing companies for that. As far as then using that material with our technology, sure, as long as you can get the material, the source material, whether it's MIDI files or backing tracks, you can pop that into RLS and use that for your rehearsal purposes.
Okay, and then so there's a question about using iPhones and iPads. Would students use their built-in microphones? Yes, you can use the built-in microphones on those. And in fact, microphones on iPhones and iPads are not that bad. They're pretty good.
They're pretty good. In fact, they're better than quite a few of the off-the-shelf mics that we've been working with in our tests.
Yeah, I will repeat, however, that you have to wear headphones. You can't have your iPhone on and then put it into speaker mode, because then you'll get a loop back and there'll be echoes. You need to be able to isolate what the student is hearing from what they're singing. Jason, I am not sure what CIPPA is. Is that a privacy? Like I'm in academia and we talk about FERPA rights, Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Is that, but we are currently only allowed to use WebEx or Google Meet with kids and not Zoom because of this. So I think that we can certainly meet the requirements, and this is about security, Jeff.
Yeah.
And the fact is that no one is allowed into a rehearsal unless they've been given an invite code and the director explicitly invites them. You want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, just to pull back a little bit, I'll also say, we are still in the early stages of this, and we're learning a lot as we go. And if there are regulatory requirements that we need to meet, then we're certainly going to pursue that and try to make this available under as many circumstances as possible. I can't answer the question directly because I just don't know. I don't know about it. I don't know the requirements.
I got some clarification from Jason. So it's SIPA is the student privacy law. Essentially, any app that requires the kid to put in their information to create an account is a no-go. The only thing that you need to create an account is an email. It does not have to be, it could be an email that the student makes for the express purpose of this. You can use a Gmail or something like that. We don't require any more than that, any more information than that. So if that is in compliance with SIPA, then I think we're fine. If not, we would certainly love to find what we can do to make sure that we are in compliance, because we have not yet had any concerns from the many other people within K through 12 or in post-K education or you know, post-12, 12 plus education about that.
Yeah, you can also sign in, by the way, with a Facebook account and your Google credentials, in case that helps.
So the next question, we actually said that it will work on Chromebooks if it is Coach, right? Is that the answer, Jeff?
Yeah, well, the Coach already exists for Chromebook, but the RLS feature is not yet implemented for the RMS Coach version of Chromebook. It's something we will get to. It's a big task, and it's kind of further down the queue from some of the other things we're working on, but we'll get to it eventually.
Right. We say this all the time. We can do anything, but we can't do everything at the same time. We don't have the resources of a Zoom or a Google, but we're moving very rapidly. We have great team members, and we're very targeted on putting out the stuff that's the most important. So, you know, as we move forward and we get more and more requests and things like that, that guides the way that we do our development. Florante has a question that I think is a really, it's more complicated maybe than what we can spend the time here, but we would be more than willing and more than happy to have other conversations later during the conference or as sidebars. The question is, how can this best work in a daily theater class when rehearsing a musical?
Well, I mean, in a very short answer, and I agree, this probably merits a much more in-depth conversation, but I'll just encapsulate it by saying you have, at any time you're rehearsing, you're going to have a session, and you're going to rehearse on scene A or song B or the choral number, and you line it up in the way that you would have any rehearsal schedule, and just have your RLS sessions correspond with them.
Okay, so Mary Cooper asked, can this be used without licensing an entire show? Can I do a cabaret style show? What is the licensing procedure for individual musical numbers? So,
okay, so we're agnostic on that. We are not claiming or promoting any kind of licensing structure. We are leaving it to you, the users, to sort out whatever rights may be associated with the show or the songs you want to perform. But once you've done that, you're absolutely free to use this technology to help you rehearse. So there's no barrier to putting together a collection of songs that will form the basis of your show as your custom show and rehearsing them with Rehearsal Live Share.
So the next question is, will this run on Linux? And Linux is near and dear to our heart. Our original applications all ran on Linux Slackware. At the moment, it's really the issues have more to do with the GUI and the interface, and we have limited resources. I don't believe that we have plans for moving this to Linux soon, though.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, Linux is not on the table at this point. If we get a groundswell of interest in it, we'll reevaluate. But right now, the simple answer is no, it won't run on Linux.
So Heather is asking, it seems most licensing companies are requiring the use of their streaming service. Will there eventually be a way to integrate?
I mean, certainly from my point of view, yes, but I think it's important to recognize, we call this Rehearsal Live Share for a reason. We are emphasizing the rehearsal component of it. We are not at this point suggesting, although it's certainly possible, and it's clearly we're headed in that direction. We're not at this point advertising this as your platform for performances. So if you're required by a given licensing company to use a certain streaming service, fine, go use it. Using Rehearsal LiveShare isn't going to stand in the way of that.
Right. At the end, if we're talking about a live streaming service or you're talking about a produced stream beforehand, those are two different types of technical questions. And we could explore that with you, more than happy to, but I think a little more in depth than what we can get to in the time that we have today. But certainly we'd be more than happy to have that chat. Mark Zortman is asking, with a group of 30 to 50, I imagine you would work with 19 and then do multiple sessions to put them together. And at the moment, we did slip in that we are currently supporting this up to 19 participants, but that's an arbitrary number, and it's only based on the fact that we've only been able to put together a group of 20 people to make the test. And we're now working with much larger choruses and things like that. So we're in the process of putting together tests with larger numbers of participants. And as we start to feel comfortable that it will support 30 or 50, then at that point, I think that we would say, yes, we'll raise that level. We're also working on a process of that's a little bit down the road, but certainly a high priority for us is the idea of serializing. And when we talk about serializing in this particular situation, what you've been seeing in our demos, it's all parallel, right? Everybody gets the same information and then they all sing at the same time and it comes to the director. But imagine instead that if you had a quartet, for example, and you started with the bass and the baritone started to sing, and then instead of it going to the director, the baritone's voice went to the tenor, and now the tenor is hearing the baritone, and then the tenor and the baritone are sent to the alto, and then the soprano finally hears the baritone, tenor, and alto, and in this way, it sort of travels down a chain. So you can imagine that you might be able to do rehearsals where you have groups of 10 that then feed into other groups, allowing you to actually, with serialization, have ensembles of arbitrary size.
I'll also say, as far as the session limit, that's a change of one line of code, and any subscriber who wants to try it with more than the 20 that we currently have set as a limit can just give us a call or shoot us an email and request up to 25, say, and we'll just make the switch for you. We'll give you any number that you want. We just can't vouch for it because we haven't done it ourselves.
But we're very interested in hearing what happens.
Yeah.
And I would say also that the more powerful the director's computer, the better chance that it can have much larger groups. That's a key point. The more you're pushing it with session size, the better and more powerful computer you're going to need.
And your network speed. Directors should be using Ethernet if available.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so anonymous attendee. Hi, anonymous. I see Be More Chill is in your, Be More Chill, right? Be More Chill is in your library. If online performance rights were secured, would a production of this that begins rehearsals in February and performs live online in late May, how much of this product and features would be ready to go for us?
All of it. Anything that's available at that point.
Yeah, and we have Be More Chill already available for RMS Coach, all the vocal lines played back by instruments. So you would get an RMS Coach license and RLS comes with it.
Yeah, I should be clear, when you're licensing one of the shows specifically that RMS has prepared, it's a different pricing model. It's not the $99 per year, $9.99 per month. So I just don't want that to create confusion. If you're doing Be More Chill and are interested in this, contact us separately, and we can give you a sense of what the pricing is on that.
There would be no additional pricing, though, for the RLS. That would be built into the package.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so, yes, that is correct. The next question, I would download the program as a director, and each student would also download the same program. Yes, that's right. And then Florante Galvez was just wondering how this works in the transition from scene dialogue to song in a musical. And it seems to me And this is actually an interesting, what I would call an implementation question rather than a capabilities question. The major difference that we have right now between conversation and performance mode is that in performance mode, everybody is receiving the same musical backing, and they can hear themselves and any other types of previous recordings. And this is all done in a synchronized fashion, but they're not hearing what's happening at that moment. As soon as you drop out of the song, then what is happening is that you are in conversation mode, and then you would be able to do the scenes with, of course, the caveat that there will be a little latency because of just the built-in latency that's inherent with these types of web conferencing tools.
Can you only use recorded accompaniment? I imagine you're drawing the distinction between recorded accompaniment versus a live piano. And yes, because the issue here is if you were actually playing the piano live, then you start to enter into the world of all the complications of synchronization going in both directions. You know, you're playing the piano on one side, your singers are on a different side, and you're trying to merge those and sync it all together. And that's what we found just, you know, does not work in a practical sense. What you would do instead is record that live piano and let that be the source of your custom show.
However, when we get to the serialization, then what you could do is you could start a performance, the live piano plays, and then that's sent to the different ensemble members. However, because it's all downstream, because the piano, by the time that the piano gets to the students, it's already in the past, the piano cannot hear the students. So this is part of the tricky issue when we're dealing with the fact that simultaneity in web environments is a different animal than the simultaneity that we experience in real life. But we're working on these problems. So Renee is saying, when you say pop it in, i.e. adding backing tracks from an MTI musical, for example, into your platform, you make it sound so easy. But as a non-tech savvy gal, what does that actually entail?
You know, I think it entails familiarizing yourself with the new process. I'm not going to, I'm not trying to imply that that it's completely, that there isn't a potential learning curve involved, but we have a ton of experience with this stuff, and we have helped a lot of people, and we're always available. And you may be a non-tech savvy girl right now, but after working with us a little bit, you're going to get pretty savvy.
And also, I think that there's a difference between how easy it is right now as compared to how easy it will be once we automate the sharing aspect. So if you can make a recording of a piano or a backing track, and then you can have that as a file, then it's very easy to upload and create a show. If you then want to start to add other vocalists to that track, then you would probably just use the RLS application to have the backing track play, record what the other people are singing, and then when you like what they're singing, then you can create additional backing tracks by just slotting them into the appropriate location. This is something that we're working on right now, and no guarantees when it comes out, but we are doing major upgrades on a weekly basis. So it's high on our priority list. So Holly has a question. Could this be used to record audio for a recorded video, similar to the way the audio is recorded for regular real movies, as in the actor would watch the video of his performance and is voicing the lines as they watch the video? So Jeff, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, I'm just absorbing it. I want to make sure I understand it. So an actor watches the video performance and is voicing the lines as they watch it. Well, yeah. Basically what I described when we did the little Fleetwood Mac demonstration, there you've got round one where you're capturing the recording, and then that recording can then be included in what's played back in the subsequent runs. So in that case, the actor could be hearing what he or she just did and be voicing lines as they watch the video. Absolutely.
Right, and I think this is one of the things that is also high on our list is that we're capturing audio right now, and then recording it, but we're not capturing the video right now. But that's, I don't know if it's next or the one after next.
It's high on the list.
Super high on the list. At that point, then in the same way that you can take any audio file and put it into Mix, you can take any video of the right format, put it into Mix, and then instead of seeing the director, you would be watching the video. This is something that is very exciting to our conductors, our choral conductors, or things who are saying, well, I want the students to watch me conduct. And so it's, once we have the video recording and video implementation for this, then it becomes a use case. And this would be just one of many different types of things you could do by being able to stick pre-recorded video in as well as pre-recorded audio.
Yeah, I mean, just to try to conceptualize it with what we're working on right now. I mean, everyone, I believe, is seeing the same thing that I am, which is we've got the 4-box grid with David on the left, or David, me, David, and Steve. What would happen in this subsequent round after we've captured the first data is, instead of, if it's me, I'm the one who's rehearsing, I would see the previous video capture of David, Steve, and David that would play along as we perform the next go around or rehearse the next go around. So there's a sensation of singing within a group, even if it's once removed from a previous take.
And under the hood, once we can do that, then we can introduce any type of video stream, and then this becomes an implementation question. And if there's a lot of interest, which there is, then certainly I can see, Holly, how we would be able to easily do what you're talking about. Okay. So Tawana Parker Bellamy asks, are there special districts pricing when you have several directors?
Right. So we have gotten this question a lot about district pricing, and I know it's something we do need to think about. Right now, partly because we're just so all consumed with the nuts and bolts of getting the program together, we haven't been able to give a careful thought to what form that might take. But I will say, right now, we feel the pricing is pretty cheap. In fact, to be quite honest, we're not sure that we're going to be able to hold on to these prices once we see what the real costs are associated when there's tons of bandwidth being exchanged, when it starts to really take off. So right now, it's per director. If you have 4 directors who would use it, that would, for a year, that would be 4 times 99, or roughly $400.
So Ted Curry, I will just answer this yes before I ask the question. Are your reps available for a phone Q&A at a later date? Would like other members of my department to hear this and ask specific questions about their needs. We're more than happy to talk to anybody that has interest, either around the corners of this conference or at a time of that's convenient to you. And that's the bulk of how we've been sort of working this currently with our current partners, is that we pride ourselves on our tech support. We pride ourselves on being able to reach out and personally talk with you and talk through what your questions and your problems are and how this might be a solution. So yes, please contact us. Is that on our sheet, contact information, Jeff, that we?
I don't know, but I also see further down the list of someone asking for links to our website. And Steve, can I ask you to go ahead and type in pertinent links, including the main links for RMS Coach and the early questions and contact form. Let's get a string of links into the chat form. It's also, a lot of the links are also in that handout that was part of the materials for the webinar.
So yeah, tomorrow, if the director has the music on their computer, then anywhere the director goes, the music goes, and therefore could be played out loud for an in-person rehearsal. Is this correct? Yes. And the music not only exists on their computer, it exists in the cloud. So you don't even have to carry your computer around. If you log on to another computer, you would have to download the software and things like that, but you log on with your license, then you would be able to use that computer. There might be some complexities when it's a licensed show, Jeff, so I'll ask that question. And I can see that maybe we're running out of time. Is that why you're popping in? You're muted.
Yes, we probably have time for just these last two questions, if that works for you all.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure. So did I hear correctly that you have to have a digital download of a song? Well, the music has to exist in a digital format. Most of these are pretty common. It's MP3 or WAV. It's if you, I guess I'm not sure. I mean, as opposed to say a tape recording or an album.
Yeah, you're gonna need a digital copy of the song, whether it's MP3 or WAV, or if you or somebody else that you're working with is familiar with creating MIDI files, or using Sibelius to create MIDI files. Finale notation software can make that stuff happen too. So.
Right, and it could be as simple as here's my iPhone, and I'm hitting the record button, and now I'm playing the piano, and now I have it on my iPhone, and it's an MP3, and now I'm going to upload it.
Yep, exactly.
So,
and where exactly is your library located? Do you mean the existing shows we have in our catalog? I'm going to assume that that's what it means. If you go to our website, which Steve, I believe, has posted in the chat log, you'll see the various products. And if you click onto any of those products, and I guess in this case, when we're talking about usage with RLS, you'll want to focus on the RMS Mix product or the RMS Coach product. And inside those respective pages, you'll see a list of the titles that are available that we have created. And again, you don't have to limit yourself to the things that we have created.
And the last question, can participants see the director in director view for conducting? And what I would say here is that we're still dealing with latency issues. So if you're conducting and trying to do temporal beating, so you're trying to do the downbeat, you're going to be in a situation where it's going to be arriving at a different time than what you hear. However, if you wanted to record the conducting ahead of time, or once we have serialization, you can have a conductor conduct and then have that flow forward, then you can do the conducting. However, at the moment, any other type of comment can be made. If you wanted to shape, if you wanted to bring the sopranos up, if you thought that while the people are singing, you can communicate them either using gestures or speech. But if you try to beat, if you're trying to deal with the precision of the tempo, it will not work. And that's because of the latency issue that we've addressed before.
Steve, someone is saying that they're not seeing links. Can you check to make sure those went through okay?
They may have been in response to that particular question as opposed to in the Q&A itself.
I said they're from me to all panelists.
Oh, no, you have to send it.
He said put it in the main chat window.
Yeah.
This is the webinar chat window.
Or you can go to...
You have to select all panelists and all attendees.
Oh boy.
I know.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
And I'm going to put one postscript on David's comment about the video of the director. When we get the when we integrate the capture of not just audio but video, the director will be able to conduct along with those backing tracks, and that becomes a stem that can be shared back to the participants. So there you are able to see the director conducting. It's just from the previous round.
And I will point out also that because we're using shared backing tracks between different participants, if you're changing the tempo, then you would have to necessarily change the backing track. And this gets a little complicated. I think we'd be more than happy to have this conversation off channel here, or actually within an RLS environment, so that you can see what we're talking about. But so far, response has been very, very positive with the numbers of choirs and things that have been working with us right now.
And I know we're skating on thin ice with our time, but I'll just point out that we're going to do another, I think it's called the teacher breakout. That's at 4:30. And our intention for that is really just to continue the Q&A and exploration. So you can think of that as part 2 of this. So anybody who didn't get their questions answered or different questions occur to them later, please come and see us again at 4:30.
And also, we're just to reiterate, and then I'll end, is that the website is rms.biz, so real-time music solutions.biz business. So you can remember those 6 letters and go to the site. There's a contact us, get in touch with us. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions offline or outside of the constraints of the limited time that's available at these conferences. But I want to thank everybody for attending and everybody here. And
thank you, EDTA. Thank you for all the people in attendance. I wish I could see you, but I'm delighted that you were here with us, and we hope this can be useful to you.
Yeah, and thank you again, Jeff, David, Steve, and David, for such a great session. Just a reminder to everyone that there will be an archived recording of this webinar available on the Event Central app until October 15th. And thanks again to our panelists, and thank you as well to our participants, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.